We're back with another Lunch and Learn. I'm Brittany.
I'm Alex.
And we're here today talking about food sensitivity testing, what they are, what they can tell us, what they can't tell us, and who might be appropriate to maybe get a food sensitivity test. So, Alex, what are you eating over there?
Well, guys, I'm still working on my lunch of a little bit of carrots, rice, and ground turkey. Go-to lunch. I mean, are you guys surprised? Oh, and here we have Echo. She always has to make her appearance, so she is welcome. Anyways, Brittany, what are you eating over there? You still working on your snack?
I still have my famous Chef Robert bar that I'm still munching on for my snack because it's almost 3 o'clock over here. So if you missed it from last time, macros, of course I tore this right down the label, but macros for this guy, there's 16 grams carbs, 16 grams protein, and 8 grams fat in this. I like these bars. Keep me full. They're good. I'm almost finished munching on this, but it's a good little snack. So this came up, this food sensitivity testing, in our coach staff meeting. We were talking about this earlier this week, and we thought this would be a nice little lunch and learn. We've had several clients bring it up recently, thinking about how they can be utilized in a positive way and not, sometimes we get clients who have food sensitivity tests and they think of it as gold, like, this is absolutely what I need to follow. But what are these tests and what are they all about, Alex?
That's a great question. So, food sensitivity test. What that is it essentially is looking to see if your body is having some kind of allergen response to a specific food, and it just lets you know. I know that's a very, very generic way, but what typically happens is there's a couple different types of tests. So you can do the at-home versions where you are either doing like a swab in your mouth or through a little bit of blood, through a blood prick. You can go to a doctor's office where they might prick typically like your back, where they put small amounts of food or an allergen into your body and see if you have a reaction of that nature. And then there's another test where the doctor it's usually done in a medical setting where the doctor gives you the food and monitors to see if you have any kind of response, like pretty significant response. Like usually that's reserved for like peanuts, things that you could go into like anaphylactic shock. So that is essentially my breakdown of what these tests are. Do you have anything to add to kind of explain these a little further?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important also to kind of differentiate, like, what's the difference between, I think pretty much everyone knows the difference, like, what's a food allergy? Like, like a food allergy, like, it's something that you absolutely cannot have. I am allergic to peanuts, or I am allergic to tree nuts. That means your body absolutely cannot process that food. You will have a anaphylactic reaction to this food. Then what is the difference between an intolerance and a sensitivity? An intolerance means you have an inability to process or digest that food. I think one of the most known intolerances is dairy, or lactose. I read a statistic not too long ago that about 35% of the world's population, which is wild to me, 35% of the world's population lacks the enzyme to digest lactose after the age of 8.
I believe it. I feel like I'm in that population.
Yeah, me too. And isn't that crazy that, like, so, I mean, in the US anyway, we put milk with, school lunches, and 35% of the population after the age of 8. So an intolerance is you lack the ability to digest or process that food. Period.
Yeah, so it's not an allergy. It's not from your immune system. It's not life-threatening. It just, you can't process it.
You're going to have gas. You're going to have bloating. You're going to be uncomfortable. And then a sensitivity is like, you just don't feel quite right. Like, there's nothing biologically wrong there. You're not missing an enzyme. It's just like, I don't feel great when I eat that food. Or like, I get a rash when I eat strawberries. I'm just pulling something out there. So I'm sensitive to this food. Like, whatever it is. Um, my skin gets dry when I eat carrots or whatever.
I
So
might have
there's
like
the,
a brain fog,
yeah,
migraines.
yeah. So there's the differences there. Um, why are these tests? Why can they be helpful? In the past, we have had to go through something called an elimination diet with old school dietetics to go through, okay, you think you might have an intolerance to dairy, or dairy is usually a pretty easy one, but we think you might have an intolerance to gluten. So we're going to pull gluten out of your diet, and then we're going to wait, and we're going to then slowly add it back in and see how it goes. It takes a long time, or we think you might have an intolerance to whatever. It takes a long time to pull those foods out and then slowly
Or,
work them back
yeah,
in. This is
I
a
was,
faster way to do it. Um,
yeah, I was
a
about to
next,
say that, sorry to interrupt, but sometimes you might not even know what you might be intolerant to or what your
bingo.
body might be responding to. And so it could be any food because the symptoms that you're feeling or experiencing isn't, you can't really find a rhyme or reason. You're not seeing a pattern. Like you might eat gluten one day and then you can't, you immediately have to go to the bathroom with diarrhea. But then 2 days later, you have something with gluten and then you're absolutely fine, but yet you're still, you're like, well, what? I thought it was the gluten. And then 3 days later, you eat something, no gluten whatsoever, but then you run into the bathroom with diarrhea again. And you're like, well, I have no idea what's going on. And so this is where enter in a food allergy test of some nature can be really helpful because it takes away all of that work of the elimination diet, like you were saying. Like, in order to really figure out what you are triggering to through an elimination diet, you have to remove like multiple food groups to a very basic, bland diet that of foods that typically don't cause any kind of reaction. And you have to kind of do that for, I don't know, 2 to 3 weeks usually is like the minimum. And then you need to add in one food at a time and wait like 3 days, 3, 4 days to see if there's any reaction. Then add another food, wait a couple, days. So you could go through a long list of foods, and then by the end of the year, you're just now figuring out, okay, now I have this reaction to this. I have this reaction to this. But that took so much time and energy and effort and recording. So, you can do it a very old school way, or you can do it the new school way.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can be exhausting. Both, I mean, yeah, it can be exhausting. And this is, how these food sensitivity tests work is they're testing for antibodies that either in saliva or blood that tend to be present when you have a sensitivity to a food. Now, there is an error rate, and sometimes someone will take one of these tests and it will come back with a list of foods that you're like, I feel great when I eat these foods. Why is this showing up? That's when I like to just caution people and say, okay, if you've eaten these foods your whole life and never had any issues, then I like to lean on how you feel versus what a piece of paper says. But if you're having symptoms, let's go get the test and see what it comes back with. Their knowledge is power, and it's worth diving in and seeing what the test will give us. Absolutely.
Yes. So typically, if I have a client that comes to me and say, hey, I just did X food sensitivity test. It's an at-home version. And now I have 20 foods that tells me, or it told me that I am insensitive to. Half of those I never eat, but yet I'm insensitive to it. It's showing up, which is odd. But then the other ones I typically eat all the time. What do I need to do? So this is kind of what I would suggest in that case is what we're going to do is just take out those foods that you typically eat on a regular basis, even if it's your favorite foods. Yes, it's sad. You can't eat your favorite foods for just a little bit, but it's only temporarily. And what we're going to do is kind of bring in that old school method of elimination diet. And now we're going to introduce these foods, but we only have to do those introductions for like 10 to 15 foods because that's what we had taken out. So it's going to be a much condensed version to find exactly what you're a trigger for, because you might be having a response to these foods, but you might not have a true sensitivity or an allergy to these foods. It's just your body is overloaded at the time, if that makes sense. I think you were talking about a really great analogy on kind of what this, like, that overloading kind
Yeah.
of
So,
phenomenon.
yeah. So your body has like, it's like a threshold, and everyone is different. Now, this is not if you have a true food allergy. Like, if you have an allergy, put that on a shelf. This is something totally different. If you have a true intolerance, like you're lactose intolerant, put that on a shelf. This is for someone who has a sensitivity. Um, we all have a threshold, and everyone's threshold is very different. So, say you have a food sensitivity, we're all going to have a threshold of how much we can have of that food. Um, let's just like use tomatoes. I'm just going to pick a food for an example. So you're sensitive to tomatoes. It could be that you could have two slices of tomato and that's fine. But once you have that third slice, it's like, you've gone too far. You've got to figure out how much that is. And if it's, you know, maybe it's cumulative in a week. Maybe it's I can have a whole tomato in a week and that's it. But once I go over that whole tomato in a week, I'm done. So it's just knowing how much your body can have. And it's the best analogy I've found that has like translated to clients is like talking about putting on a new pair of shoes. It's like you put on that new pair of shoes and it's like they're fine, they're fine, they're fine. But once you wear that new pair of shoes so much that you get a blister on the back of your heel, you can't wear that new pair of shoes until your foot heals. And you've got to just put those new shoes in the closet and let your foot heal. And then you can start to wear those new shoes again. But you've got to wear them like every other day or every third day or so and let your foot get used to those new shoes. Like that's the same
Mm-hmm.
way with a food that you're sensitive to. You can't go out and like wear them every single day. You can't go out and eat that food that you're sensitive to every single day. You've got to do it sparingly because you know you're sensitive to it. Your foot is sensitive to your new shoes. You've got to do it every now and again. And it's the same way. You've just got to find your threshold. And just like an elimination diet, a reintroducing diet, it takes time, and
Mm-hmm.
it is, for lack of a better term, annoying at times to figure it out, especially if it's a food you really enjoy. And a food like tomato probably is not that food. Who's going ham on tomatoes? But if it's a food that you really enjoy, um, it can be annoying, overwhelming, frustrating. A lot of words, but it's worth it once you figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I kind of created a food sensitivity on my own. One reason why, if you catch me during a breakfast time and I'm eating chicken or turkey, is because there was a time where I used to eat eggs like 2, 3 times a day because it was one of my favorite foods and it was super easy to cook and prepare and I didn't have to think about it. But over a period of time, just like you said, I wore those shoes way too long and I created a blister. I started to have GI issues, really bad gas, like extreme bloating, discomfort, stuff like that. And it was through not elimination diet, a food sensitivity test that I kind of put those two and two together. I took those eggs out and I kept them out for a period of time. And now I know that I can have those sparingly and not deal with those GI issues that I had at one period of time. So, yeah, food sensitivities is like you said, it's not that it's the most definite, like you cannot eat those foods for the rest of your life. It's, you just need to learn your threshold. And then are you okay with pushing beyond that threshold and also seeing some of those symptoms? So it's like you don't have to avoid those foods forever.
Yeah, yeah. Just with moderation, know what's coming and know how your body's going to react.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Before we go, I had a question that somebody, sent in, and it says that I'm having all these digestive issues and GI trouble, and I think it's a food sensitivity, right? Is that the only reason why my GI might be upside down? And actually, it's not always a food that you eat that causes the gas and the bloating and the GI distress. So always make sure that you are paying attention to everything because stress, lack of sleep, medication, eating habits. Are you eating without taking a breath? Like, did you eat just your full salad without ever taking a breath? Like, just shove it all down in your mouth. Dehydration. Those type of things can create GI problems, and it can show up as like a food sensitivity, but it's not necessarily a food sensitivity. She's got to kind of check everything else that's going on around you.
Yeah, absolutely. Eating too quickly, all those things. Yeah, absolutely. All right. This is great. I love this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
So guys, use your food sensitivity test as knowledge is power. It's not a definite thing. And then, just the more that you know, the more that you can find the best diet for you.
Perfect. All right, guys. Well, if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us or to your coach at WAG. We're always happy to answer questions about this topic or any other ones. And if you have any episode ideas or anything you'd like us to touch on, please let us know. Leave us a comment, and we'll be back next week with another topic for you. All right.
Yes.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, everyone. If you liked what you saw, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to our channel to get more content on nutrition, health, and wellness. Thank you for watching.